Hey everybody, it's me, Peter Bowden. Welcome to this chat on Facebook and changes to the future and nature of Facebook and things that impact our congregations. I'm glad you're here. If you're tuning in, just give a little like, whether you're watching live now or the recording. So recently at the big Facebook conference, Mark Zuckerberg shared a lot of things about the future of Facebook, changes that are happening. And these impact our strategy and the way we're using Facebook to connect with people. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what he shared about changes to Facebook, what I think it means for us, some of the things we can do strategy-wise, and then I'll take questions. We can have a little discussion. All right? So first, if you, I would love for you just real quickly to tell me what's your role in your congregation or just something about yourself. In this group, we have people who are religious educators, ministers, membership coordinators, board presidents, outreach people, just all kinds of people doing great work in our congregation. So just give us a little something about who you are, what you're working on. I'm just going to pull open comments so I can see what you're saying. All right. So at the recent Facebook big event, the F8 conference, Mark Zuckerberg, who is under massive scrutiny for constant privacy violations, controversy from our previous election, 2016, Cambridge Analytica, all the way up to newer problems with the European Union coming after Facebook. Zuckerberg is under all kinds of pressure. Facebook could be facing like $5 billion worth of fines from the European Union because of all the sketchy things Facebook's been doing. So what has Zuckerberg got to do? He's going to show people that he's changing Facebook to accommodate the needs for Facebook not to do horrible things, right? And I think he controls something like 60% of the voting stock of Facebook. So it's like he is just like the overlord of Facebook, and he's like right over my shoulder. You like that picture? Anyhow, so what he announced in the conference is that Facebook is going to shift to, or we've had congregational pages and all kinds of brands and organizations using public pages to communicate with people. They're really going to start focusing on having more privacy, encryption of messages between people. So I share a message with you and the entire thing gets encoded, encrypted in a way that not even Facebook can open that message up and see what it is. So increased privacy. They want to take their different platforms, Facebook, Instagram, which Facebook also owns, WhatsApp, which Facebook also owns, and make it so you can kind of communicate more between those different apps, so interoperability. But then, more ephemeral content that doesn't stick around. So like Snapchat stories, Facebook stories, Instagram stories, all these things where you post a message and it doesn't stick around after a day. And what I think is very important for us, moving to make groups the heart of Facebook. And so first, does your congregation have a Facebook group? If it does, tell me a yes or a no in a comment. And if you know the answer, tell me, is it an open group or a closed group or a private group? Just so we get a sense. Because that's going to be important for our strategy with how we use groups to engage with people. So first, if we were all kind of like doing Facebook the way Facebook said to do it, working on our pages, using pages to share information, like the official platform for our congregations on the platform of Facebook. And Facebook realized over a year ago that, you know what, people spend more time on Facebook, including looking at ads, when they're in groups with people that they're connected to. So when they're connected to family, friends, and groups that they care about. So Facebook really started shifting to prioritizing groups. They switched things in the algorithm, and then there was a day, like a while ago, when all of a sudden our Facebook pages had less reach, less visibility, and groups are getting more priority. So if you run a page or have a page that's been a primary part of your communication strategy, over the last year, chances are you've seen a real drop in the reach and impact of that page. And that's because Facebook, who controls the algorithm, changed what they're going to show people. So now Facebook is realizing that they have to make Facebook much more engaging for people, feel safer, and just so with they're going to do all these things about privacy, making it so people can feel good about being on Facebook and communicating with people and feel like their information, their messages are not being shared, all kinds of other things. But they know that people stick around, like they keep doing studies, like what keeps people on Facebook, and groups are just increasingly important. So now what does that mean for our congregations? If we want people who are members and friends of our congregations, and we'll talk about newcomers in a moment, to stay engaged with what we're doing in our congregations, we need to be continually communicating with them and holding up what we're doing, why we're doing it, and just engage them with the life of the congregation. So if you've had a page and have been trying to communicate with members, friends, newcomers through a public page, that's just, unless you're paying to boost that page and paying to get it in front of eyeballs, I think you're going to see less and less reach and impact and engagement on those pages. Facebook isn't going to be showing that information as much. So for communicating with our existing members and friends, we really need to move towards having a fantastic, exciting group, a congregational group. And I mean, there's some different ways you could organize it. Maybe you have multiple groups depending on the size of your congregation, how you're organizing different ministries. But think about, I know there are a lot of congregations that are experimenting with this, doing this, having some good results. A Facebook group for your congregation that's very much like a coffee hour, where there are people sharing announcements and news, and it's not like people have to go through an administrator to get stuff posted to the group, news and information. People are just sharing more freely. It's a little more wild and loose, but there's a lot of energy and engagement. And so we need to use groups in a way that are going to be engaging like that. And I think more collaborative, great sharing. The more we can have leaders of your congregation, including ministers, other leaders, if you have them, be participating and using that forum to engage with people, that's going to be great for keeping people in the loop and excited about congregational life. The problem, and there's a huge problem with that, if we have, and I'm already seeing this with congregations, if we've been communicating publicly via pages, so where newcomers can see what's happening, and then we have a group over here, which is for more members and friends, and everyone's posting all kinds of great content in your Facebook group, but it's a closed group. And so like the newcomer who isn't sure if they are into the congregation, like your congregation's right for them or not yet, they're looking at your page and maybe your website and all the great content and discussion and news and information and engagement about being involved is happening in your closed group. All of a sudden, for the newcomer, if they can't see all that life and energy, unless they join it, well, when they're checking out your social media website, they might not see the energy. They might not see that level of excitement and engagement. And so there's a very real chance that they're going to be like, this doesn't look so great. So what we have to start looking at is how do we use our existing groups, especially if they're closed groups, to maintain energy and excitement, keep people engaged, and figure out how do we want to work with newcomers and how do we make sure that they know that we've got the jammin' group. And do you want them to be in that group? You have to let them know what that group's for. So there's just this, I continually talk about now a digital path to membership. Someone is interested in your congregation. They look it up on their smartphone after a friend tells them about how great the thing is that you did. And they're checking you out. And we need to come up with a process to really help people in a plan and a path for people to be like, oh, this congregation looks great. Now, I think one of the best things we can do is use your websites. This is not talking about Facebook so much, but it's important. Use your website to say on a visitor page with video, like a welcome video and things like, hey, we're so glad you're here. Here's who we are. Here's what's going on. After you visited and connected with us and are getting involved, we have an amazing Facebook group, which is all like everyone in our community sharing, discussing things. But your first step is not to spend weeks on social media, but to come to our, say, a monthly newcomer gathering, a newcomer coffee, one Sunday morning a month. It's this Sunday. And we have coffee, our minister's there, other people, and we're going to tell you about the congregation, answer your questions. We're going to have amazing food, coffee, and it's just everything you need to know to kind of get oriented to who we are. I think helping people go from, in our digital age, when people are interested in your congregation, they're not thinking, oh, I'm going to do a 6-month PhD research project on this congregation. And it's like, no, it's like right then and there. Is this the place for me? Is it? And if in that moment, and they almost always go to your website, if we can say, hey, here's how to connect and sell them on moving off social media first and just getting into your congregation, I think the more you can focus on that, the more Facebook proof your growth efforts can be. We don't want to get people stuck on Facebook. We want to get them into your congregation to engage in the meaningful community that they're looking for. So, Zuckerberg in this presentation last week, he's talking about meaningful community. Oh, there's social isolation. We want to help people get involved in meaningful community. And that's why Facebook groups are so important. And they're making groups now the heart of Facebook. If you updated your Facebook app over the last month, the last week, you'll see some changes to the layout. And I got a notice saying, oh, groups are now the heart of Facebook. Wait, I think I have an image of that here. Hold on. Boom, this is when I updated my app. That's what it said. See what's new. Groups are now at the heart of Facebook. Explore groups. So they're going to push groups. The other thing, very soon they're going to be updating the main website of Facebook so that, like, if you look at it on a browser, so it's more clean and white, and groups are going to be at the heart of that. So and when they do that change with the layout, groups are going to be much more front and center. So I think our pages, not as much attention. Groups, more important. The other thing, I just have a couple more notes. They're also going to have a video app, so a desktop video app, so that people can do more video communication. Now, lots of changes. So I just want you to think about, how is it that, if you think about someone new to your congregation, how can you take the moment when they're like, I wonder, I'm looking for meaningful community. And Facebook recognizes, Zuckerberg recognizes, we all know people are need community. Like, we're tribal people. When people are in this moment where they're considering your congregation, how can you help them move to visiting your congregation in a way that is very clear? You're expecting them, and you've made the next step for getting involved really clear. And for me, I think specific events on certain, you can say you're always gathering, so people can come anytime, but let them know, hey, on this Sunday, when we know our key leaders are here, and there's people from our connection team or membership committee or whatever, and there's going to be a special gathering and food and etc. Let them know that's the time to do it. And so I think that can help them connect. And then, in terms of how you're using Facebook, we just got to start being mindful of pages being less effective unless we're pushing them, paying to promote them, and that our groups are going to be where Facebook is going to give us more, we're going to see more action with our groups. And we need to figure out, if we have closed groups that you have to say, I want to join to get into, how does that work with newcomers who haven't decided if they want to be part of our community yet? So those are things we need to track. I'm going to be following some of the changes, talking to all of you. So please, if you have thoughts, ideas, continue to comment on this video. You can email me, message me through my page. And this is something that we just have to start figuring out. I want to start looking at how congregations are using their groups really well. So if you have a rockin' group, you just feel like your group is fantastic, and in terms of being a place where there's a lot of energy, people are engaged, and it's a kind of group where people are spending a lot of time in that group, which is what Facebook wants. If you'd be willing to share the link with me, and you could just send me a private message via my page, if you have a group that you'd be willing to let me check out, I'd love to join some of our groups, congregational groups, and see what you're doing. So with that, I want to start looking at some of your questions. All right, here we go. All right, we got Lots of media and communication volunteers. Awesome. And questions. Will this be archived? Yes. It's gonna, as soon as I stop broadcasting, this video will still be there. So if you don't have a group yet, I think it's good for you to recognize, like, all right, even though Facebook keeps doing things that make people be like, this is horrible, Facebook's evil, I hate Facebook. There's so many billions of people on Facebook that is like this default human network, and there's going to be a core of people on Facebook, no matter what. I think. Could that change? It depends. If our government starts regulating social media, they break up Facebook. Who knows? But I think in terms of trying to engage with people on social media, there's going to be a good core on Facebook. And on Facebook, the successful strategy for engaging people is going to be shifting very rapidly, and it's already doing that towards groups. I switched. I still have my public page, but a while ago, when did I start? You guys, you joined this group. I started this UU Planet Leaders group because Facebook said they're going to start prioritizing groups like a year or so ago. And here we have over 1,000 members. Woohoo! So that's so I'm trying to model what I think your congregations can do. So I think the first step is to say, we as a congregation, if we want to engage with people on Facebook, we're going to need a group. And that's something you can just start talking about in your staff meetings, communication team meetings. Exactly how to announce a new group, get people into groups. Maybe that's something we can talk about more in another session, and just ways to promote it. But I think what I'm going to do is spend a little time looking at people who are leading groups for congregations, seeing what they're doing, spend a little time myself looking at what I think is really successful, and then I can report back and we can discuss more. So that's a great question. All right, how do I think a group will work for small congregations? Is there a sweet spot for group membership to have a certain level of engagement? Well, I think that a small congregation, if you could have a group where you're still sharing, hey, this is what's happening on this weekend or this event, people sharing event news. You can share report backs from events. If you're one question is how small of a congregation, because maybe a little different strategy if you're 10 people versus 100. But I think if people are looking to, when they're not in community with you in person, face to face, if they're looking for connection, say if people don't have lots of friends they're hanging out with during the week, they go on social media, they want to be able to connect. So one strategy, say if I was leading a congregation, I'm doing more consulting training work with all of you. I'm married to a minister of religious education, so I'm affiliated with a congregation, but I'm not leading it. Maybe someday, but not now. If I were leading the congregation, I, as minister, would be sharing what's happening every Sunday in my group. I'd go live via video, but you can also just write it out, text, and share, hey, this is what's going on Sunday, or maybe I share what's happening next week. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. It's going to be exciting. If you have anybody who's ever thought about dating a robot, we're talking about love and technology. Tell them. No, I'm just kidding. That might be interesting service. But invite your friends, and ask people, hey, do you have articles, videos, things that you've been checking out related to our topic? Post it in the group so we can all discuss. And all of a sudden, your group could become a place, if you're a small congregation, like a place to do conversation and prep for coming together. Maybe you could do some of that with a larger congregation too. So I think there's a lot. The main thing is just knowing that people are looking to engage via social media and to participate in meaningful community. And you can use a group have people sharing in different ways, from announcements to discussion, watching, looking at content and articles related to whatever you care about as a community, and have that be a nice way to supplement what you're doing face to face. All right, let me just go through, see other questions. All right. Well, I think that is the main things I wanted to cover. So I want you to know that Facebook is changing and we need to pay attention to these changes. Groups, essential. If you have a group that you think is working really well, please let me know if you'd be willing to have me check that group out. I don't want to just start going to all of our congregations and like crashing their groups and like looking around, I'm not Mark Zuckerberg. No, okay. I should be nice to him. All right. Anyhow, so just be mindful. It's a lot of changes. And we're just looking at this massive transformation in how people communicate and connect. And for me, one of the things that I'm encouraged about with Mark Zuckerberg's presentation is that he's just kept talking about meaningful community, putting groups at the heart of Facebook. And they're aware of the social isolation and the problems people have from not having community. We have to get people into community, which means there's a huge opportunity for us to connect people in community. Groups are a way to help keep people who are engaged with us already, I think, to help keep them engaged, and really strengthen relationships between times when we're seeing each other. And we do want to see each other face to face, but I don't want to address the social isolation and the need and hunger for community and like the desire to belong through Facebook groups. I want it, like the answer to be getting involved in your congregation. All right. So we'll talk more about different strategies moving forward. But for now, thank you for all you do. And if you know, this is going to be recorded. So if you know of anyone who'd appreciate this video, this conversation, tag them in this post. You can invite them into this group. It's going to be here. And I'm going to edit, like take the first part of this video and share it via YouTube. So I'll put a link to this when it's on YouTube, so that if you want to send it to someone via email, you can do that. So have a great day. I'm recording this on a Friday. Is it Friday? It is Friday. So have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you soon.